Do you want to know what the magic bullet really is?
I'm sure everyone does. Go for it.
The sympathetic and the caring funeral director that truly cares about what they do. That's it right there.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
It's knowing and caring enough about what you do and waking up every single day and knowing that what you're going to do is going to affect someone's life forever and wanting to do it.
Right.
Not that it's a chore, not that you're waking up going, oh man, why do I got to go to work today? It's those funeral directors that wake up every day and go, I love what I do. That's what makes us the best funeral directors out there.
Welcome to the Direct Cremation Podcast with your hosts, Tyler Yamasaki and Will DeMichaelis.
Hi, thank you for joining us on the Direct Cremation Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Yamasaki, CEO of Parting Pro. And as always, I'm here with my co-host, Will DeMichaelis, former manager of the Omega Society, a cremation brand that served over 4,500 families per year. So today, our guest is another powerhouse. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Cremation Society of Maryland and McNabb Funeral Home. And I think there's another one that we haven't mentioned. And they cremate about 5,000 calls per year. So another one of those gems. He's an expert in efficient and effective death care operations. Interesting fact, he's only been licensed for the past 3 years in 2020. So crazy timing on that. So please welcome Chris Boggs.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here with everybody.
Yeah, thank you. So it says that you've just been promoted to the Chief Operating Officer within the past few months. So we'd like to congratulate you. How are things going?
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you. Things are going great. I really don't see I just have more responsibility when it comes to the business aspects, but all the day-to-day operations stay the same. Our people are what make us successful. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is just, taking care of our people, and our people take care of us. And, we really consider ourselves like the family funeral group. So, we provide services and, we see each other more than we even see our family. So we really consider ourselves a family, and that's what makes us so successful.
It's great to hear. Yeah, it's really nice to hear, especially as you get that kind of crazy volume, things can kind of corporatize. So you keep that nice family feel, great for retention, great for staff, great for families.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's key. It's just, our work-life balance for our staff and our directors is key. The owner and myself be the first one that'll be there, on a Saturday or Sunday to lend support, or even, if they need some time off, we fill those roles. We consider ourselves, we would not ask our staff to do something we wouldn't do ourselves.
Yep. So Chris, I want to definitely get into the breakdown of the company as a whole. Talk about Cremation Society of Maryland and all the other funeral homes. I know I left out a couple, but I'd like to go into a little bit of your personal story. You are not a generational funeral director. When you go onto your LinkedIn, you definitely have a more interesting background than some others that we've seen. So maybe you can kind of start from maybe the beginning of your professional career, and we can kind of go from there.
So, really, I lost my dad when I was 12 years old. My dad passed away from a heroin overdose. And I'll never forget in 1999, walking into a funeral home with my brother, who was my half-brother, who's significantly older than me, to make the arrangements for my dad. We were there with the entire family. And we're sitting around this round wooden table. And I remember at one point, the director, his name was Andrew. I can remember it. And he looked at me and said, well, what do you want? This is your dad. You have a say in what happens. What do you want to take place? And, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm 11 years old, had no idea. And he took me through, and this goes back to when we had 2 days full of 3 to 5, 7 to 9, and then a full funeral service the next day, going to the cemetery and so forth. But for those 2 days worth of viewings, I'd hang out by the lounge, by the coffee machine, and that was where his office was. And he was there, and, he would kind of talk to me and just make sure I was okay. And that's always stuck with me. that profound impact that he made on my life in that time is something that I'll never forget. And I remember thinking then, I was like, I want to be a funeral director. Now, that's not the road I took. I did a lot of, I was a private investigator, had my own investigations company, would go out and do like high risk collateral recovery. So it was pretty much a fancy word for a high end repo man. And, that's where I met my wife. And me and my wife got married. And next thing you know, we're having a family. And my wife's like, it's time for you to do something that's a little less dangerous. And next thing you know, I was like, well, you know what? I've always wanted to be a funeral director. And she's like, okay, well, what do you have to do it? So here I am, I feel like I'm settled in my career, have a good business going and all like that. And I decide, all right, I'm going to stop everything and go back to school and become a funeral director. And I started in 2016 with school. I went to John A. Gupton College in Nashville, Tennessee, and I did the online program. And of course, I go and I'm due to graduate in 2020. And what happens? COVID.
Yep.
So that kind of like put things through a whirlwind. I served my apprenticeship through the COVID pandemic, which was completely a different, I was in a traditional funeral home at the time. We're trying to figure out how we're going to integrate things, how we're going to be able to make arrangements, how we're going to handle families, telling a family you can only pick 3 or 4 people to come in to say goodbye. That's all we can have for services. And it was a crazy year as an apprentice here. Then got my full license in October of 2020, made my transition over as just a pre-need director with the Cremation Society of Maryland. And from there, really, I guess, excelled and took off to the next steps, went into, at need. And when the new ownership took over, approached me with being a director of operations at the time. And, of course, what do we need to do to grow the business and so forth? And then a year and a half later, we're steaming right ahead. We're averaging, on the Cremation Society of Maryland side, probably 115 to 125 calls a month. We do, and that's with 3 licensees. And, the sky's the limit. And of course, meeting up with Autumn and then integrating in with Parting Pro has been such a blessing. Yeah. And here we are now.
Yeah.
So you've definitely not taken the traditional work positions.
Yeah. And I am a huge advocate of that for this industry. I love when people outside the industry from non-generational funeral homes are called to this work. And I've found in my experience that you get some of the best people that way. People who come from outside fields and come in and say, I really want to do this. And they're great at it.
Well, I think we would all agree that, our profession, and, I am a big TVB fan, Todd Van Beck. He was my instructor when I was at Nashville before he went back to Cincinnati. And, sadly, we just lost him.
Sure.
However, it is our duty to really preach and explain to families, even for a direct cremation, what is the value, purpose, and benefit of the funeral? Why is it there? What the funeral is not for the deceased. The funeral is for the living. It's to, get you to, I don't like to say closure, because do you really ever have closure? I think it's acceptance. And, I think as cheesy as this is going to sound, our calling into this profession truly is a ministry to the other person. And we have to be empathetic and be able to, work with them and, just figure out exactly what benefits them as a family. How do we get them to that next step? You know what I mean?
You're not the first person to call it a ministry. And I find that those with that type of attitude and perspective on this work generally provide some of the best service in the industry, because they know why they're there. Not just the how and the what, but the why. And that why always comes through, no matter whether they're taking a first call or in arrangement meetings or managing employees of the team. It all comes through that why.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how is the Cremation Society of Maryland team structured? Because you guys are doing a lot of volume and you're managing a lot of operations. So how does that structure work for you guys? How have you made it work for you?
So from an operation standpoint, we have, our owners of the company, Jim and Michelle Schwartz, phenomenal people to work for. there is myself, and then we have at the Cremation Society of Maryland, there are 2 other licensees. That's it. We do have, support staff, and our support staff is key to everything. If it wasn't for our support staff, we would all fail and fall flat on our face every day. I am so thankful for who we have to fill those roles. The way, our business model works, in all honesty, we probably do 99.9% of our arrangements all completely electronically. It's very rare. It's only if the person does not understand technology at all,
Right.
that they are really coming in and making arrangements with me anymore.
Yeah.
The full service side, we kind of do everything online, and then we come in and have a final sit down just to, solidify, logistics, timing, and things like that. But other than that, the family has already done all of their paperwork and things. So the way I look at it, and, again, going back to Parting Pro, I can sit there, and the arrangements that I would have to make in person, where I could only be limited to maybe, 3, 4, 5 arrangements a day, for a direct cremation, I can actually sit down and I could do 5 in an hour, if even an hour. Because it's having, the conversation on the phone, explaining them for 10, 15 minutes what the process is fully going to entail. And then this is what you're going to get. I need this back. This is the turnaround time, the explanation. And now you could sit down and take, our biggest was 26 in one weekend, but it's manageable.
Yeah.
With a highly trained administrative support staff, a licensee can now do the volume of 3 licensees, only being one person.
Yeah.
And we've truly embraced that. Now, it was a hurdle to get there, because I don't know if change is a 4-letter word in the funeral industry. And try to change something, man, it's like pushing an 18-wheeler uphill while it's in reverse. But we're getting there.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's struggle. I think what you mentioned is uniquely important. And I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. It's you have developed a way of speaking to families on the phone to proactively answer their frequently asked questions and give them a synopsis of the whole process on that call, so that you know what they know because you've told them. And they know exactly what the next week or 2 weeks is going to look like. So what they can expect. And it saves you time on any return calls, because you proactively alleviated a lot of unnecessary questions just by having, and that's good service.
Oh, yeah. What I have done is in the proposal email template that we send out, I've actually edited that. And in that template, it says, here's the steps to our process. 1 through 10, this is exactly what's going to happen. You're going to receive this email. You're going to select it, et cetera, et cetera. A funeral director is going to call you, verify and establish who our authorizing agent is. They're going to then receive these documents. Once we get that back, and once we have a death certificate and our permit, at that point, your loved one would then be released for cremation. And the turnaround time is X.
Yeah.
Now, we do offer a couple different options of, kind of like the fast pass option, to where if they want expedited or a 24-hour turnaround. But, that's one of the things that's up to the family to choose. And they go through and they pick their choices. I'm not sitting there. One of the biggest pushbacks I got from some of our directors when I first took over was, well, I'm not a car salesman. I'm not saying you are. But I'm a firm believer that we take and we should be presenting every option to every family every time. I've adapted now when I get a first call and a call comes in, or a pricing call, when they call, I want a price of a cremation. The first words out of my mouth are, well, what kind of cremation do you want? Oh, there's more than one type of cremation? Well, yeah, you have a memorial service, you have cremation with a viewing. The sky's the limit. There's no right or wrong. It's what you want. It's my job to figure out how to tell you yes and how much it's going to be. And that's the business model we've taken.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crucial opportunities to educate and inform families. Yeah. Yeah. Smart.
How much of the training and change, even like, let's say even pre-Parting Pro, to do that type of volume, would you say that you were really dependent on having a good phone answering system? Did you have scripts? Did you develop like talking? Did you train a lot of your staff?
We've looked into, like the phone coaches and stuff like that, but some of the pricing for that is pretty steep. It's because they come out and things like that. What we have done is we've put in place processes. So if one of our administrative personnel answers the phone and it is an inquiry or pricing call, they will speak to a licensed director. So hold one moment. Let me get you one of my license or one of our funeral directors. They'll speak to you. And our biggest thing for our directors is it was a big hurdle. It was kind of like you're retraining and remaking a habit. What is it? They say you've got to do something how many times a day consistently to then create a habit.
Yeah.
So it's as you're walking by and you're hearing somebody, well, hold on. That's not how we're going to do it. It's having those coachable moments to train your team. That way they're ready to hit the ground running if you're not there. And we've really embraced that. And, we're in a small facility. So 9 out of 10 times, if somebody's on the phone, the other person down, I can hear them in my office. Yeah. So if there's something that needs to be addressed, we have the opportunity to address it. But one of the big things as I've learned, especially in this role, is if you hear it the first time, you've got to address it. You can't just let it go. You've got to address it, correct it, and then continue to move on. And that's one of the biggest things. Our staff is very, all of our phone staff will. You never know if it's the owner calling or having his mother call or his cousin call to kind of like secret shop.
Yeah.
Just to get that feedback.
Right.
So, we don't have like the nice VoIP systems where we get the opportunity to go back and play back calls or anything like that because we're just not there yet. But ideally, that's some place where I'd like to get to because then again, we have more coachable opportunities, how to overcome a possible objection or how to, possibly explain to that family a little better what their options truly are so they feel like they have gotten it. And that was one of the best things about us moving on to the arranger is that now when the family gets on there and they click cremation, there's 6 or 7 different options and they can make the choice. They can go through. Now they know they don't just have to have an alternative container. If they wanted to upgrade to a cremation casket, they can do that. They don't have to, but you'd be surprised how many people have now.
Yeah. And you don't have to figure out a way
to sale.
Yeah, it's an easy sell that's on their terms. And I found that people are so much more receptive to shopping that way, especially now. And for the director, it makes your life a lot easier. Like you don't have to say anything. You don't have to sweet talk anybody. They're looking at it for themselves. They can click on it a bunch of different times. They can close it, take a nap for an hour, come back to it. Ask a family member, any number of things to make that decision, and you don't have to be sitting with them.
We've had so many calls to where it's crazy. I don't know if there's a way on the back end you could see how fast a proposal email goes out and how fast one comes back in, but we'll literally be sitting there and, I will sometimes proactively, if I'm sitting there with the family on the phone, taking the first call, we'll walk through and pre-fill out all the vitals. So it saves them time through the, arrangement process. Yeah. However, when, they're sitting there waiting for us to arrive at the facility, 9 out of 10 times before we've even arrived at the facility, they've already gone through the proposal. They've sent everything completely back before we've even walked in the door.
Wow. Makes your job a lot easier. Wow.
And that right there is how we can handle the volume without being inundated with paperwork or having to schedule. Well, look, I've already got, let's say we have 32 people in our care right now. I'm not going to be able to meet with you until next Wednesday.
Right.
I can meet with you right now. Yeah. If you want to, I'm going to send this to you. Once you go home, take a nap, wake up, because your loved one passed away at 2:00 in the morning. You want to get, 10 o'clock in the morning. Once you wake up, have a cup of coffee, sit down, talk with the kids and whatnot. You can sit at your kitchen table with your iPad and make your arrangements.
Right. In peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had so much good feedback on that, just being able to be in the comfort of their own home and being able to relax, opening and closing the paperwork 1, 2, or 3 times throughout the day. But, by the afternoon, it's done.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to go anywhere. Yeah. It's special. It's really special to be able to offer that to families.
Chris, you mentioned something about, when you answer the phone, it could be the owner or a cousin mystery shopping. Do you guys do that to yourselves?
Absolutely. I want to make sure that at any given point, when someone is calling into, one of our firms, that irregardless if you're on your 10th call of the day and you're the only director there, you're going to feel like the very first family that I've spoken to that day.
Yeah.
You know,
And you know what it's like. You know what it's like.
yeah.
Yeah, when that goes horribly wrong at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday, and that's a price shopper, how poorly those calls can go if someone's not in the right state of mind.
It can go sideways very quickly, and then
Yeah.
it takes one bad review to undo the last 100 that you've worked to get. And irregardless of if I've got one person in my care or I've got 100 in my care, to the family that I'm dealing with, to each and every one of them, they want to feel that they are priority.
Yes.
And
100%.
rightfully so.
Yeah,
because
of course.
we only have one shot. We have one shot to do this for the family. There's no going back. I can't say, okay, well, I'm going to cut your grass better next time, Mrs. Smith, because I missed that side of the lawn. I only get one time to care for Mr. Smith, and we're going to knock it out of the park. We do not have room for failure in our roles. Now, are we human? Is it going to happen? Yes, because you know what? We're not going to be able to please every single person every single time.
Right.
You'll have certain families. So a lot of people will say, well, you're bottom feeders, you're this, you're that, you're just undercutting me and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Look at Marriott. How many brands does Marriott have for different price points? We provide a service. We provide, the same service that you're going to provide at a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
So you're just mad.
Yeah. I say that. I say that all the time. I think that that's a lack of intellectual honesty.
Absolutely.
And I think it comes from a place of fear for a lot of those directors that say those types of things. And I always say the same thing. Look at our Google reviews. We have 850 Google reviews with 4.9 stars. And the most common things that people are saying is that we're compassionate, empathetic, and kind. I'm not going to listen to you. I think it's out of place to say those things. And what I always say is compete. All you're doing, and all firms like us are doing, is competing. And the best way we can compete is offer people good service at a price where we can afford and they can afford. And if it's pleasing to them, then I don't understand why anyone would have a problem.
At the end of the day, as long as I've met the needs of my family, am I going to be able to meet every one of your wants? No,
sure.
That's not feasible. I will try.
Yeah.
However, with our business model, we are very upfront in what you're going to receive.
Right.
If you want something additional, we will do it for you, but there's a cost associated with it. If you want a direct cremation, I'm going to give you a direct cremation. If you want a full memorial service, that's fine. We can do that. But here's what it is.
Yeah.
And, versus the competition or something like that, that's like, well, you're selling yourself short. No, I'm not. I'm covering my overhead. My people are being taken care of. My families are being taken care of. I'm able to provide for my family.
Right.
So when's enough?
Right.
We're going to be our own worst enemy in the industry if we're not careful.
Okay, so we've talked about efficiency is definitely something that you guys have figured out on the arrangement side. I'm sure your operations side has segmentation and efficiencies as well. But, what are some of the main things that you guys have done to actually maintain and drive the case volume that you do have?
We were constantly in our community, just like today. I just renewed for the local pharmacy. The little paper bags your prescriptions come back to you in. They call us and ask us if we'll sponsor. Putting it out on one of the bags. Yeah, that's 24,000 bags in a year that they do.
Wow. I've never heard that. That's an interesting marketing tactic. I haven't heard that. I like that.
Ownership is our Jim and Michelle are very big in, giving back to the community, being involved. We are predominantly, our staff is predominantly female, and we just had a big article written about women in the workplace, where they came out and did an expo on all of our, our female directors and our female staff. We do whatever we need to do to be there in the community, to have our face in the community. Our directors, one of the things we really pride ourselves in is that you get involved with a community organization, you join a community organization, you get out there, and it goes back to the old school funeral director. Everybody knew who the funeral director in town was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They knew who they could come to. They knew it's the same principle.
Yeah.
There are certain things in this industry that we can't, get away from because it's the bedrock principles of what we are. So a lot of the other things, and to be honest with you, has been the organic SEO growth that we've had through all the positive tractions for our Google reviews.
Great. Awesome.
You know what I mean? That awesome. It's coming from the families themselves. I just served a family today, had a witnessing at 10 o'clock, and the son was like, my sister was in Cali. And when she Googled, she saw your reviews, and she's like, she called, had a wonderful experience, and that's why we chose you.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're getting a lot of feedback from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the social proof. A lot of them are already leaning to yes before they call because of that digital moat that you have with reviews. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Enough. Do you do any paid ads on digital?
So we haven't done anything for like social media, like any of those platforms or anything like that. We've had some experiences with a couple companies. I'm not going to put them out there because it has not been a good experience. We're not going to continue with it. What we have found is that we can drive our own business for a fraction of the cost that we would have to pay for a company to do it. Now granted, the algorithms and all the back ends of Google and that type of nightmare stuff, we've sit back and, I've looked at, but you know what? We're doing good with what we've got going on now. We do a lot of, on our personal pages and like that. I started a group on one of the social media platforms back when I was an apprentice. And I think we're up to like 6,000 members now. I think, Tyler, you joined today. I just approved you.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's great. That's exactly how we built Omega.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even have to advertise digitally. We did it mostly through relationship marketing with hospice and services. So it sounds like maybe you guys do a little bit more other type of community involvement.
Yeah.
But still going into the community and diving into that so people know who you are, and that word of mouth over time really takes care of you.
Yeah. I want us to be, in the community to the point to where we need to call Chris. We need to call Jim. We need to call, whoever, it's not, we need to call, ABC Funeral Home. I want to say, we got to call Chris.
Yeah.
That association is what makes us different than, the brands that are just putting their name everywhere. And, the whole, we care, this, that.
Right.
No, there was a guy that I listened to that I really respect. And one of his big things is, if you have to put that you care on your marketing, 9 out of 10 times, you probably don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You show it through your work, and that's evident in what comes back.
Right.
I think a very common theme that we've seen after talking with you, and we recently had Kevin Waterston on, who was in Minnesota, and they were doing thousands, and Will and some of our other customers that I've talked to, very few of them have continued to grow their business based on Google ads.
Yeah.
And while I think that Google ads are a way to grow your business, especially when you have no business,
sure,
the ones that have really taken it to the next level, where they're hitting thousands and thousands of cases a year, have created these crazy like digital moats online. Because not even online, even within their community, but they've grown, they've gotten those families in, and then those families keep coming back. They've built up these amazing reputations within the community, which can then be seen online a lot of times within their Google ads. And then at that point, it just gets so big. And as long as you maintain that level of service and that compassion, it's really hard to compete once you've gotten there.
Yeah, that's the best part about like a Google business profile. When you go out into your community and develop those relationships, and that word of mouth spreads, and then people start calling Chris, and then Chris delivers for that family, that feedback manifests itself digitally as that Google review, which then the next person sees before they call Chris. And just helps Chris more. So that all that moat can be built offline and then be manifested online.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with too is that, they understand what the expectation is from us as a provider to that family, is they know what they're going to expect to receive. And, I think that's where, sadly, when you look at, I think we all do it. You look at your other competitors' reviews and you see that the family was expecting one thing. So you brought them in the door. You got them there. You got the call. You put the Ruth Chris or the Morton Steakhouse price on it, but they got the dollar menu. So what didn't transition there? And
Right.
When you come in, that it's going to be even keel level with what we're providing you. So companies get into the situation to where they're not providing the level of service they're charging for, and that's only going to get you so far.
Yeah, it's only going to last so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people like you who have to take the time to make your operations as effective and efficient as possible and know that every call is so valuable and being willing to give feedback instantly to your team members, you keep building that moat inside your business and out.
It's a lifestyle. As funeral directors, it's not a job. It's a lifestyle. How many times is it, you're with your daughter, one of the things is, for the holidays, like Christmas, stuff like that, I always take the phones for the staff, give the staff the time to do their thing. But, Christmas morning, it's a lifestyle. Sometimes your family gets put on the back burner all the time because this family needs you now. And, it's a lifestyle that we have to live, and you've got to want to live this. It isn't about the suits. It isn't about driving the fancy cars. It's not about looking pretty, just being the face of the funeral. It's being there and doing the job. And I think that's where, the programs, the people that are coming out of school and things like that, you're learning what needs to be learned to pass the national board exam. But, where are we failing the apprentices and not really teaching them old school funeral directing? So that's a different tangent, but still.
Yeah. Did you see our podcast with Lily McMurrow?
Yes, from Worsham.
Yep. Yeah. We got into a lot of that. And I have somewhat similar thoughts on the gap between funeral education and what the industry and actual practical job
what the reality is.
Yeah. I think some people that are more suited to those arrangement roles or funeral directing roles with that immense compassion and empathy, I think that doesn't get well served learning a lot of things they have to learn in school rather than doubling down on what they're really good at and really want to do for families, And I think great funeral directors and managers teach those things to the new students and recent graduates, but some don't. And unfortunately, a lot of those people end up leaving the industry.
It's sad. It's sad because you've lost the what do they say federally? We're understaffed profession.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look at the number of licensees that are coming out, and you look at the longevity of their careers.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing wrong?
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. Burnout's a real thing.
Oh,
that's why, it's self-care is so important. For our staff, they never work more than 4 days in a row.
Wow.
The way our schedule works, they never work more than 4 days in a row. And, they work one weekend a month. The other times they're either off for the weekend or coming off their long stretch where they were on call. They only work, 3 days that week. Then they're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They come back Tuesday. They got to recharge their batteries. And I think some of the things that we're doing is we're running our apprentices to the ground. And, there's like, I can't do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have resources there. Like you guys talked about not too long ago was like, doing your own removals, setting the expectation for, your staff, your transfer staff, you're contracting out to, what the expectation is, and not killing your staff. You know what I mean? There's different ways to do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think it seems so obvious to us, and still some great people don't think it's necessary. And some even think that type of driving people into the ground is the only way to learn this business. And I think it's extremely misguided.
we're losing quality people every single day in this industry, hanging it up. Again, going back to one of the stories that Mr. Van Beck told in school, he brought a young lady in to interview with a funeral director. The funeral director goes, "Well, how much can you lift?" And Mr. Van Beck looks at the guy and goes, "So-and-so, you're in a wheelchair. How much can you lift?" What does that have any bearing on it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can she do? Yes.
It's a weird flex. It's just a bizarre approach. And that's a great story. And there are tons of people that ask similarly bizarre and unnecessary questions. Yeah, stupid questions. And it drives people away. And now we're more understaffed than ever with more workforce retention issues than ever. And, if there's ever a time to learn to change your ways, it would be now.
It's going to be, interesting to where we are, like how you guys end every time, where you're going to be at in 10 years. And, it's going to be what we make it.
Yeah.
And we're in control of our destiny right now. And you look at, the trends between cremation and burial. What's happened? We've outpriced ourselves in the burial market.
Yeah.
We've done it to ourselves. Come on now.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. It's really refreshing hearing, especially your workforce, how you look at your workforce.
Yeah,
Chris.
It is.
I don't know if that's because you're maybe relatively newer to the industry, because I do feel like maybe we call them like the old guard. It does feel a certain way about, I put in these hours, I worked my ass off for years before I was given any type of like respect within the funeral home or the funeral profession. And now I'm here. So that's kind of how I want to treat everyone else. But, for you, talking about certain days that they can't work consecutively and only working certain weekends, I think that's a really, really admirable stance to take. And I think that probably attributes greatly to being able to grow such a huge, operation.
What's the old Sam Cooke song? Change is going to come.
Right.
Right. It's inevitable that change is going to happen. If we don't change and adapt, no pun intending, we're going to die. We've got to adapt ourselves to what the generation is now in the funeral industry. I had a family the other day that's like, well, we need to do this. What about an obituary? I said, when's the last time you picked up a paper? I can gladly put something in print for you, but it's going to cost you XYZ from this publication. However, I'll put it on my website for you free of charge. And then all you're going to do is share that link via social media or email it out. And you're going to save yourself a couple $100. You put it together, email it over. It can be as long as you want. Now, how many other times is it, well, while I'm doing this, I'm going to have Miss Edna here. She's going to type up everything, and then I'm going to bring it back for you to proofread. Then we're going to submit it over to the paper. Things are changing. Times are changing. Yeah. The people that read those obituaries religiously every Saturday, unfortunately, are now our clients.
Right. Yeah. Right. To your point about change, it's the companies that know that change is here and are willing and able to proactively get ahead of those changes that are going to get and keep the best people and grow the most.
Absolutely. The more we sit back and we say, this drives me crazy. We've always done it this way.
Oh, yeah.
We've always done it this
famous
way.
last words.
Yep. You know what? Yeah. Though we've always done it this way, doesn't mean it's the right way now.
Yeah. It's really just a projection that I'm scared of changing. I'm scared because I'm not going to be in control of whatever's next. And I may not understand how this software works or this new phone system works or how DocuSign works. That's what it's saying. They're trying to protect their own knowledge base a lot of the time to remain in control. And it's at their own detriment, medium and long term. In the short term, you can get away with it, but it's not that long before your employees are saying, I'm stuck doing this a way that my owner wants because they don't know, they won't admit that there's a better way that makes me a better employee.
Yeah. It's sad.
That's sad. It's sad. Yeah. That especially is because it's I wish I could, shake some of those people because you don't know that you're just losing the opportunity to, help that person's growth in their role self-confidence, and then that's going to translate to how they treat their families on the phone, the amount of capacity and calls that they can take per day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just going to make for a better experience for your families.
Well, what do we always say? We're one step away from greatness, but you got to take the step.
Right.
You got to be willing to trust your staff. They've got more of a finger on the heartbeat and pulse than most owners do, because the old school, the ownership clubs. How often do you see those guys getting together and, trying to figure out things or something along those lines, or even come out? When's the last time, you've seen an owner come out and say, hey guys, what do you think we can do to make things different?
Right.
You very rarely ever see that. Solicit your feedback.
Right. No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what's next for Cremation Society of Maryland, McNabb, and what else you got over there?
So, we've got Cremation Society of Maryland, McNabb Funeral Home. We've got Metro Crematory Incorporated. We've got Myers-Durboraw Funeral Homes. Mm-hmm. And, the way that Jim and Michelle like to put it, we want to become the Amazon of funeral service. I think it's very possible. It's very plausible with the model and, the support we have from, like Parting Pro and developing and, branding. And when people can just sit down on their couch and do it right from their iPhone and not have to worry about anything, it's a no-win. It's a win for us. Obviously, we're going to continue to grow. I think we'll get to a point to where we're comfortable, but my thing is I want to continue to develop the bench underneath us so that, when we do continue to grow, that's how I can move to that next level.
Sure.
But it's all about development of the people below us.
100%.
So as we bring in, the new apprentices and things like that, it's giving them the responsibility to, do the right thing and learn and put them into the roles of what I'm doing so that they can develop. So they don't feel like, okay, now I'm a licensed funeral director. That's all I'm ever going to be.
Yeah.
We have a business model that is expansive to where, okay, you want to move into a CFO role. You want to move into a director of operations role. You want to go into, the pre-need, like the director of pre-need. Those are all avenues that are available, but you got to work and you got to want to do it. I'm a big proponent of, if I have to do it, why are you here? So you're going to, if this is what you want to do, you're going to do it. I'm going to give you every tool to be successful, but it's up to you whether you're going to take those tools and use them.
Yeah.
So it's all about development, growth, and, just seeing where the future holds, because, it's what like I said before, it's what we make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that segues really nicely into the question we usually ask every guest. What do you think death care looks like in the next 10 years?
Honestly, I think, and again, I think it's been mentioned before, we're going to be in a more, we're going to be in a digital era. Death care, traditional death care undertaking, things like that is still going to be needed because we take care of things no one else wants to take care of.
Yeah.
We're there at 3:00 in the morning when that phone rings and you need us, we come.
Yeah.
But I believe that the services and things like everything is going to completely be different within 10 years. Yeah. I think it's going to be more of, either just virtual. I think we're going to go back, and we set the expectation that it was acceptable during COVID. It's more of the virtual gatherings and just, perpetual memorialization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In summary, I mean, I think you've touched on a lot of things. I think a lot of times people want to know what that like special secret sauce is. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I don't think there is a secret sauce. I think it's, there's a lot of best practices that you follow. There's a lot of execution that you have to do. And once you do those things, they create amazing businesses. Yeah. And I think you guys have really touched on a lot of that.
Do you want to know what the magic bullet really is?
I'm sure everyone does. Go for it.
The sympathetic and the caring funeral director that truly cares about what they do. That's it right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's knowing and caring enough about what you do and waking up every single day and knowing that what you're going to do is going to affect someone's life forever and wanting to do it.
Right.
Not that it's a chore, not that you're waking up going, oh man, why do I got to go to work today? It's those funeral directors that wake up every day and go, I love what I do. That's what makes us the best funeral directors out there.
Yeah.
Well said.
So big
said.
secret right there. And as a manager or as an owner, your job is to make sure that you provide the environment for those types of employees to basically thrive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Chris, you've mentioned a few things today where I'm sure it may not make everyone happy, but I think you're definitely on the right track. Where can people find you?
So, I'm readily available on Facebook. We do have the, as you saw today, I have that Facebook group, Morticians and Apprentices. Prospective students or licensees are really who I try to gauge to get into that. You can go to Cremation Society of Maryland.com. All my contact information's on that website. Christopher Boggs on Facebook, so you can find me there. Send me a friend request. I'll accept you. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Granted, I'm all about rocking the boat. That's the only way, we're going to make any change, but we're going to do it the right way. But, we got to what's that old saying? We got to break a couple eggs to make a cake, right?
Omelet.
Omelet. There you go.
Yeah. I'm with you. I see you.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm right there, man. We can make a cake too. You still got to break eggs. I'm with you.
Now I got to put you on the spot, Tyler. When are we getting 3.0?
It's coming. You'll definitely be the first to see it. I'm sure you will be the alpha, beta, and final users for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to share, Chris? I really appreciate it. I know you are rocking the boat, but you've been more than willing to share and talk about what makes you guys successful.
Yeah.
And you've been collaborative, and I actually really appreciate that. Like, one of the main reasons that we even started this podcast is just we felt like there wasn't enough knowledge share amongst professionals, especially the ones that are doing things that, not everyone gets to interact with or see.
This all boils down to one of the biggest things. You look at like NFDA. Now, was sad, didn't see you guys in October at Baltimore.
Were we there? We were there. No, maybe
were
not.
you? I missed you. But, I looked around and had the opportunity to go to convention for the first time, and our young licensees didn't get the opportunity to go because they were back manning the ship.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we did is we allowed, if you wanted to go, we would rotate the shifts so that each person got a chance to get out on the expo floor and see what was going on. Or if you wanted to take a CU, you could take a CU and see what was going on. And, we're missing the way to bring all of us and the younger, the new generation of funeral service together and have that networking opportunity, because it's that quote unquote old guard that just it's that, that click that, I'm going, but you got to stay back here.
Sure.
So finding a way in these type of platforms is phenomenal. This is how people are going to connect. This is how the industry is going to continue to evolve. We're going to network, and, we're just going to make people better, man. We got to do what we do best, and that's serve others and get that person to that next step.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's a great philosophy to have. Yeah. I wish more management and ownership had that kind of philosophy. I think the younger generation would be well served. With more managers and owners like that.
And I mean, man, I know I got a bald spot, but I'm not even that old. You know what I mean?
No, I know. You just know know what time it is, man. You just know what time it is.
Yeah. Now saying that, now are you guys going to be at Cana in DC?
I will be.
Are you coming?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I think I will be on vacation, but someone will be there from Parting Pro.
Yeah. So I'll definitely we'll have to make some time to grab some lunch or something like that while we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. It's been enlightening, and it's always great to talk to operators who are doing things that, not everyone else is doing. So really appreciate it. Really appreciate you sharing. And if there's nothing else, then I'd love to just thank our listeners. Thank you very much for the Direct Cremation Podcast. I'm Tyler Yamasaki with my co-host, Will DeMichaelis. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you ever want to know more, please find us at directcremation.com.